We've covered a lot of ground today. We started the day talking about toilet paper, and then throughout a number of different perspectives, really dived into securing software and the cybersecurity threat. And not being a software person, I think I felt more comfortable with the toilet paper discussion. Although it was a full day, we did not really cover every aspect of supply chain security and its complexities. Oh, I'm typing. But I just have a few to expand back out the perspective that we started this morning. Reliable sourcing and trusted sourcing and being able to track that sourcing pedigree is important from beginning to end. Whether it's national security, protecting devices, for the systems we rely on for health, transportation, work, and home from threats, but also things that you've been reading about in the newspaper to deter human rights abuses in mining or manufacture of the product, confiscating counterfeit products, which could be software products as well, or in ensuring the purity of products, as in drug products or other types of devices. And this, as I think it was mentioned earlier today, this requires international cooperation, not just national cooperation, and it requires the cooperation across government to develop standards and information sharing that goes beyond what we have now. I loved what was talked about during the transportation panel, where they said with industry, it's really reliant on industry and how their own policies are set, whether they're going to share this information or not. Some industries will share the information readily, others won't be compelled to share, and that'll create its own barriers. The pandemic with its shutdowns and climate change has forced us all to reevaluate what resilience means and where we need it most. And globalization, although it's provided us many benefits, it's also created a lot of vulnerabilities. And some of those vulnerabilities can be certainly categorized as inconveniences, but some are existential to our ability to provide for our national economic, and in some cases, our very lives. And these areas need to be addressed first. I think what became clear across the day to me was our ability to prioritize the numbers that people were talking about and the magnitude of systems and things that people were mentioning were in the thousands. And how do you fix that? How do you address that unless you have an automated way or a way to be able to bring that down to a reasonable number? I think on a broader scale, supply chains cannot be looked at in isolation. They're closely linked to transportation systems, and they will be impacted by things like trade agreements, the war and conflicts that we've seen with Ukraine, labor practices and labor issues that we've seen in California, and then climate change. It will impact every part of the supply chain, from sourcing to inventories, to routes, to warehouses, to storage, and our ability to deliver. I think this year we've also seen that the vulnerabilities are not just created by big events or those big software threats, but also relatively small ones. Just shutting down that one baby food factory in one state caused a national shortage of baby food. We've become very vulnerable as we've consolidated industries, and we're down to single sources for many, many things across our nation's supply chain. And I think an earlier panelist also mentioned, as we levy more and more requirements on industry, we're going to see more and more consolidation and making us sometimes even more vulnerable because we'll have fewer sources. We talked a lot today about technology and the technology that can help with information gathering and sharing, illumination and analysis and insights. But other tools are needed to be able to address the end-to-end challenges. Diplomacy, policy, and rule of law are all super important weapons in trying to address the supply chain issues that we face. It was described earlier, too, that even analysis and illumination can only take you so far. You eventually have to prioritize and take action. And I think that is where, back to when you're dealing with 6,000 different items on your supply chain list that it's hard to be able to pull through and decide which ones that you need to take action on first. I worry that the scale of what needs to be undertaken seems impossible without an automated way to address risk, prioritize, and fix those vulnerabilities. AI and machine learning will certainly play a part, but as we see with, as much as we talked about the software constantly changing in different version numbers, the threat is constantly changing as well. So the whole dynamic situation of this supply chain and securing the supply chain is certainly an enigma that many of us will be continuing to address many years into the future. Our economic systems really depend on a reliable supply chain, and everyone who has participated in this dialogue today has a role to play. And only by working together between government and industry can we secure our supply chains and our economic future. It's not just about supply chains, but trusted sources, trusted software, trusted suppliers. So I want to thank you for coming, and I look forward to convening more of these important dialogues about supply chain in a broader sense going forward. Thank you.